Welcome to the Shame Free Zone. I am really excited today. We're going to be talking about how to author your life. I know that might sound a little odd, but bear with us. We're going to get into it. My guest today is Lara Zielin. And Lara is a published author. She's an editor. She's the founder of Author Your Life. And her debut young adult novel, Donut Days, was selected to the Lone Star reading list, and her romance novel called And Then He Kissed Me, written as Kim Amos. Okay, Lara, I don't know why you're hiding behind pseudonyms, but we'll find out. Was nominated for a Romantic Times Reader's Choice Award. Her magazine articles have appeared in Writer's Digest, in Culture, Medicine at Michigan, and more. And her nonfiction book, Author Your Life, is about using the power of writing to create a better life for yourself. So, Lara, why did you use a pseudonym for that book?
Well, I love it. That's your first question. You're so funny.
I'm an author. I want to know. Plus, I have a chosen name, not the name my mom hung on me, because my mother was upset when I started going on CNN and Fox News and Bill Maher's Politically Incorrect talking about being a sex worker. So she's like, "You're not using your birth name, are you?" And I go, "No, I chose the name anyway. I don't like the one I had."
My reason was not at all anything tied to shame or anything like that. I just didn't want my young adult readers to see my name and then be like, "Look, mommy, there is a book with, two people hugging on the cover," and then be like, "What's a blowjob?" I mean, I didn't want that. So so I just kept them separate.
No problem. Well, I mean, authors are entitled to have pseudonyms. Women actually have a long history of using pseudonyms because take it back 100 years, you couldn't get published if you're a woman.
Amen. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah.
So I was 8 years old when I knew I wanted to be an author. That was a dream of mine. And I'm just wondering, when did you know you were going to be an author?
Oh, yeah, I had the same thing. I definitely had the same thing where, like, I don't know about you, like I have these I have a little callus on this finger. I'm not trying to flip anybody off, but I used to write with like my little pencil, my little green pencil in grade school, and write on that like lined paper where they taught you how to like write cursive. And I'd like write on that paper so much I got a callus, and it's never gone away. Like I just couldn't write enough. There was just something about it. I would tell all these, really bad stories. And I've kept, my mom, bless her heart, she kept so many of them. So now we take them out sometimes and just laugh at them, and they're silly and cute. But yeah, I'm with you. I think, I had a writer's heart from a young age.
Yeah. I entered my first writing contest when I was 8.
Did you win? Did you win?
No. No, I did not.
Do you remember what your story was?
I have not the slightest idea. Oh. I remember when I was 12 that I wrote a poem about one of my lizards that died.
Oh, a little lizard poem. Did it?
No. Yeah, lizard poem. It's true. Yeah. So, you have a brand new book, and it's called Author Your Life. This is an interesting take because a lot of times people who write novels or fiction are kind of going into fantasy land. But if I understand you correctly, you're actually helping people understand how they can kind of rewrite their real life.
This is true. Yeah. The idea is, maybe I should back up and say that when I was really successfully publishing books, I had my young adult career, I had my romance career, everything was going great. And then within like 3 weeks of each other, both of my publishers dumped me, like hardcore. Like they were just like, we're not going to renew any contracts with you. And it took me by complete storm. Like I had no idea that this was happening. And I was like, I will be a published author forever. Like this is what I thought I was going to do forever. Right. And they kicked me to the curb, and I'm like, okay, well, that's okay. Like a writer writes. So I was just like, well, I'll just write other things and I'll find new publishers, and I'll just, keep writing. And I tried my hand at erotica. I tried my hand at middle grade. I kept trying, young adult, like nothing. nothing worked.
Wait
Nothing
a
worked.
sec. Wait. So you did erotica and books for kids in primary grades?
Well, it wasn't the same book, but
Well, I hope not. But that's quite a bit of crossover there. So,
I'm a woman of many talents. What can I say? I mean, I had my leg in that. I had my foot in
well,
that.
it's ridiculous that I even ask you that question because we've got this. Oops, so sorry, my phone's ringing.
Make sure my ringer's off too.
So the whole idea that women who have children somehow or another don't have sex, so I always a mystery about that. How do we get the children if we didn't have sex? Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
Are you a mother?
I'm not. No, I have a fur baby. You'll probably hear her barking.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love fur babies.
Yeah. But it is, I mean, we want to pigeonhole women and say, well, you could either be a young adult writer or an erotica writer, but how could you be both? Like we want to and that's we're just conditioned to do that. But I was trying my hand at all of it. Like I was just like throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck. And my muses were really quiet. My muses were like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that.
I hate it when there's dead silence.
Right?
You're asking for guidance and it's dead silence.
That's right.
But you know what? I don't know how you deal with that, but I interpret those times as meaning that I need to kind of get quiet myself and allow for germination.
I wish you were my friend back then. I could have used a wise word from a wise woman at that moment. I learned that eventually. It took a long time. And in the process, part of why I'm here is that in the process, I just started to feel like this garbage person who was worthless because my career doing what I loved had imploded and I couldn't think of what else in the world I was ever going to do. Yeah. So I, started drinking. I started, pulling away from friends. I started, I was just eating way too much. I was, just trying to like self-soothe in this really bad way, this kind of toxic way. And then the other thing that happened is just because I felt so bad in my soul and in myself, I didn't really want to be intimate with my husband. So that was a wall like I totally put up. And then like in this darkness, I kind of remembered this concept that I had as a fiction writer where I would always ask myself, well, what do my characters want? Like what would make my characters happy? And so I started asking myself that question. I was like, well, what do I want? Like, what would make me happy? If it's not going to be a publishing career, if the universe is telling me no on that front, what would make me happy? And so I just started writing about this character named Lara, who gets to have this amazing life that she wants to have. And I started this really terribly titled book called Lara's Life. And it was, the lamest title ever. But I got out my little journal and I got out my pen. It was old school and I wrote by hand. And I filled up 10 journals that first year. I filled up 10 journals just writing about, I wasn't writing about like, oh, I'm so sad. And boy, I wonder what happened to my publishing career. Like I just wrote like, Lara's joyful. Lara gets to have amazing sex. Lara loves blah, like I just wrote about this awesome future like it was here. And when it started working, I was like, what is going on? Like this, I didn't even know that this would work. I was just desperate.
So what do you mean it was working? How is it working?
Well, my life within a year of doing this, I mean, I can look back like after a year and be like, holy crap, like this was astounding. So, some of the concrete things that happened were I just started drinking less. Like I wasn't so like glug, glug, glug. And, our finances took a turn for the better. I got my sparkle back. I felt hopeful. I felt really like human again. And our, it wasn't perfect, but like intimacy with my husband was like healed in a way that it hadn't been. So that was like, I mean, I had these really tangible, great outcomes that I really attribute. Well, I know now I had to like I had to go back and research. Once I figured out it worked, I was like, why did this work? I had to like research it.
Right. You're reverse engineering your life.
Exactly. So then I, figured it out. But at the time I was just like, wow, this is really helpful.
Wow. Okay. So is this kind of tapping into some of the metaphysical principles that we learn in things like The Secret, or do you differentiate this in some way?
There's a lot of that. I mean, I think yes, yes, and yes, and yes. There's also just a lot of really good cognitive science involved in this.
Oh,
So
say more about that.
yeah. So for example, when you have a thought and you tie the thought to a physical action, it actually makes the thought take hold more. So that's why me writing by hand was so effective, because it was like locking it in a way that if I had just been, thinking about how, how I got my sparkle back, or how, my husband and I healed our relationship. Like if I had just been thinking it, it wasn't as effective as also then writing it down. I had that motor skill to like lock it in. So that's why now I teach people, go old school. There's actually, you've probably heard those studies that kids who take notes in classes on a computer retain less information than kids that do it by hand. Same principle.
I confess I haven't heard that, but I've just intuited it. So like with my coaching clients, I want them sometimes to do an exercise. Like I have them do their ideal relationship.
Oh, yes.
And I prefer that they, get out a piece of paper and pen and actually, if they're having problems in their current relationship, do the plus and minus. This is what's good. I call that the cost benefit analysis, and then write out what you want. And I ask them to just fold that piece of paper and put it away, because it's been my experience that when I write out what I want and I let go, because it's like a really key part too, is the letting go part, that it will come back to me. But yeah, I think that motor skill is really important too, the writing longhand. But I mean, Laura, what are we going to do with the younger generations that don't even know how to sign their name?
we're gonna help them. We're gonna help them out. We're gonna teach them what we know.
maybe they'll have holograms, and that'll be even better than writing a longhand. I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Also, like there's more science too. Like even this idea that if you think about yourself in the third person, like me thinking about Lara as this character is actually instead of writing like I sure hope someday, I was just like Lara instead of I. And there's research behind that too. There's a researchers at the University of Michigan, and I think it was Michigan State, teamed up and they studied people, how they think about themselves in the third person. And the bottom line is that we're a lot nicer to people. Like we think much better about our friends and even acquaintances than we do about ourselves. So if I was like, hey girl, like next week, starting Monday, I'm going to like run 3 times this week. Like I'm going to get up and I'm going to like go for a run 3 times this week. Next week, you'd be like, yeah, cool. Like I like you, you're a good friend. Like I can totally see this, blah, blah, blah. Okay. We're not even that close, but I bet you would believe that about me anyway. Like it's, and, but Monday morning comes around, I get up out of bed and I'm like, okay, I'm going to run 3 times this week. You know what my brain does? No, you're not. You didn't run 3 times last week. You're tired. You just want to binge, whatever on Netflix. You just want to binge Netflix. Like I cut myself down so much more quickly than, a friend would, or that I would think, I would think so well of a friend, but so critically. We're so mean to ourselves, right?
And is it possible too that when you're thinking about Laura third person instead of I, that you are able to dream bigger dreams for her than you might for yourself?
That's exactly it. Yes. Yeah. Yep. It just opens up those little cognitive channels in our brain, just cracking that door to a little bit more possibility. And that's what we need.
So you're really talking about brain technology here.
Some of it, yeah, some of it. But at the end, what I recommend, and you nailed it. I mean, you're already doing this, right? But at the end, what I really recommend is that people close their notebook, they set it aside, and they just take a minute to generate the feelings that they wrote about in their new story. So for example, if I was writing about this, beautiful story about Lara connecting to her husband and being more intimate, I would just put my notebook aside and just feel how much I love him and feel how grateful I am that he's in my life and feel how safe I am with him. And that those feelings are the engine for manifestation. Like you want to like bring change into your life fast, use your emotions, use that power.
Right. Exactly. It's interesting, isn't it? How we, I'm thinking about how they train athletes a lot of times. They have them watch videos of whatever sport they're going to be playing, but they want it to be as realistic as possible so that, they get into it emotionally. They're not just passively watching it.
Yeah.
And certainly some of the kind of video game training that they use, say for military personnel, even it gets you like almost like you're really there.
Yeah.
So how let's say somebody is watching this right now and they're like, hey, I want to rewrite my life. And I got to tell you, I'm getting kind of excited about this myself. I'm like, there's some things I really want to affirm from myself for 2021. And I love this idea of writing it in the third person. So I'd be writing about Veronica instead of saying, I'm going to do this or that. It's interesting because when I say Veronica's going to do this, I can actually feel the energy centers inside my body open up and start to kind of expand. But as soon as I say, I'm going to do this, it gets heavy. Like I feel, oh, maybe I won't, or I hope I keep my word, or I hope I live up to what I'm saying. Or is that normal? I mean, have you noticed this in other people?
I think this, again, I think this comes back to, the science we understand, some probably science that we don't understand about how, maybe our energy centers work in conjunction with the written word. I don't know if anybody's really studied that. But I would, I always tell people and I coach people, and I know you do the same thing, is just like, go with what feels expansive, go with what feels good. And, there's really no wrong way to author your life. I mean, if you wrote in the first person, I'm not going to say it's not going to work, but I just think, I'm going to go with what the science says.
Well, it's worth trying because I've gone through lots of coaching programs, and one of them was a metaphysical one. It was actually Jack Canfield, and it was all the affirmations were all I, and yeah.
So the thing is, there is a time and a place for I, for sure. The thing, so I think we're doing the I process when we do the emotional process. Like what we're doing with the third person, we're just trying to crack the door to allow our brains to think, just like you said, bigger, think with more possibility, think more kindly of ourselves. And then we do really the first person is when we draw that all in through the emotional work. So it's both. You need both, right? But I'm going to do the I stuff with emotions.
Got it. So Laura, are you mostly working with men or women, or just is it same? Doesn't matter.
Women. I mean, almost exclusively women. I have a couple male clients, but not many.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Do you think women are more proactive about self-help, or do you think maybe women have a little more hurdles to get past in the confidence department, or what are your thoughts on that?
The longer I think I live in this world, I think the more I realize how fearless and strong and amazing women are, and how like you can't do this work and be scared. You have to face your, can I swear on this podcast?
Oh, hell yes.
Okay. You gotta face your shit. And if you're, and I can't, the thing that happens, and I don't mean to stereotype, but quite often men come to me and they just want to talk. They want to tell me what they know and they want to talk, and women want to listen and receive. And that's the best. Like when you're a coach, you want to impart, I want to explain how this works and do the whole thing. And women are just fearless. They're just fearless. They're like, I got to change my life. I got to, I'm going to work, I'm going to have kids, and I'm going to change my life. Like all my clients are like fearless in this way and not afraid of hard work. And I'm not saying men are. I'm not saying men are any of those things, but I just feel like women have this lion's strength in them that makes them just ideal for this work.
Well, yeah, I think men are fierce and brave too, but they just the male culture really tells them you're not supposed to ask for help. You're supposed to know everything. I
Oh,
know. I know
yeah.
sometimes I actually have to remind my clients sometimes it's like, oh, so did you want me to actually coach you on that? I mean, I have your money, but and I could just sit here and listen to you have all the answers, or I could actually coach you. It's up to you.
I need to try that. I need to try that the next time that happens. No, it's true. It's true. And I'm married to a guy with a really sweet, kind heart who he likes to cook. He owns an ice cream store, right? Like, he's like the most sensitive person in the whole world. And he struggles with like how to be a guy in this world. And I need to be more sensitive to that. So I hear that and I respect that. And I'm going to try your technique of
okay
in the future.
well, I'm a cisgender female. I was born with a female body, but there's a part of me that's a little bit male identified. So it's really easy for me to talk guys' language.
Yeah.
I get it, and I can create a lot of safety for them. But I have to work on my own toxic masculinity. So I was just yesterday kind of expanding the envelope about asking for help.
Hey.
Doesn't always come easy for me.
Yeah, that's real. That's real.
So I really would. Is it okay if we just dive a little bit deeper into how it is that authoring your life in this story about Lara actually helped you to reduce your drinking and take better care of your health and have better sex with your husband? I mean, that's a lot of pressure on this little story. And I don't quite understand it. I don't imagine that it's intuitive to my viewers either. So we're anxious to hear how it worked.
Oh, well, I will say, I was hungry for change. I was ready for change. So to find something, so let me be like super straight and say that for the first year, I was just doing the writing part. And you can just do the writing part like that. You can get there through brute force and rote repetition. You can get there. You can change your brain. If you write Lara loves herself enough, by God, you write that 10 journals full after a year, you're gonna love yourself. So what has been the biggest revelation to me is this power of actually then closing the journal, putting it away, and just feeling the feelings. So that has attracted the most change. I feel like I've changed even more since I started doing that piece of it. Because the engine is such the driver. And also that's where the ease is. That's where the flow is in the power of the emotion. So I don't, I wish I was sort of like a Joe Dispenza or somebody,
I don't, but okay.
Just somebody who understood the mechanics of why this works a little bit better.
He's too dogmatic. He thinks he actually knows everything. So I think it's great to have questions. And I have a question for you. Can you be a little more, let's just take the thing about the drinking. How about that?
Yes.
So kind of guide us through what happens. So you write out the story. How many times do you write it out? For how long do you write it out? At what point do you put it aside? And what changes are taking place along the way?
Yeah. So initially, great. By the way, thank you. I don't know that anybody's gotten this detailed with it. And I'm really grateful for that.
I'm a nerd. So
I love it. So for me, I don't know that I was writing initially. I don't think I was writing Lara doesn't drink. That's the other thing. Well, let's put a pin in that because I've learned now that I should not write Lara doesn't drink. I would write Lara fuels herself with healthy liquids or something like that, right?
We don't want to have negative affirmations.
Exactly, right. I had to learn that too.
Yeah.
So I was not writing like Lara has great sex or Lara doesn't drink, or what I was just writing like just kind of clawing my way out of this situation where I was just like I felt like just to have feel like I was connected to my soul's purpose again, that I had a reason. Really, my reason for like kind of being on this planet had vanished with, I thought, with the novels. I didn't know who to be if I wasn't a published author. I didn't know who to be.
Oh, but you're singing my song. I don't either.
Oh, well, okay.
What's the point of living? No, I'm just kidding. But but still, I mean, if it's your main identity, that's a tough one.
It was. And that's dangerous scaffolding, to construct your identity out of scaffolding that is very rickety and could vanish at any minute if the publishers tell you you're done. That was not a healthy identity. I have learned now that I matter, if I'm laying on the couch and watching Netflix and not doing a thing. I have as much value there as I do successfully publishing novels or running my own company. Or
you've got to explain how you got there. That's a tough one.
Well, and it really, truly, the things that I was writing were just imagining myself happy and feeling fulfilled and feeling like I understood why I was here on this planet, and that I had worth, that I was enough, that I had worth, and that I was enough. And I remember one of the things that I remember writing over and over was that Lara has a soft heart, because my heart had gotten really hard. And it was hard against my husband. It was hard against the world. I felt like every day I was just like swallowing poison. It was just like it wasn't even swallowing it. It was in me. It was like rising up in me, because the world is so poisonous. Politics were poison. And I was angry at the publishers, and I was sad, and and I remember writing about how I reconnected with compassion and a soft heart. And I remember that being kind of a game changer, and asking to have more gratitude, just in the story that Lara is grateful. And those were the things that were the game changers, not,
yeah. So what I'm actually hearing, Laura, is a lot about gratitude and acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And those are key cornerstones of a sound spiritual life, as I understand it. I mean, I think, when I'm grateful, I actually do a gratitude list every night when I go to bed. It's a prayer that I say. I always, just start thanking my higher power for the things that went right that day. And it really helps. I mean, I wake up in the morning grateful.
Yeah.
And I find that the more gratitude I can express, the more those things that I'm grateful for get multiplied.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah. 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 And that's all that energy. That's all you're raising your vibration to say, thank you, universe. I can accept more. Thank you. More, please.
Yeah.
Like that's just, yeah. It took me a long time to figure that out. Is that like what an important thing it was to just be okay and thankful for where I was in that moment. So now, I tell people like, oh, I wasn't drinking as much, or, I stopped drinking as much, or I stopped, eating as much, but it wasn't about weight. It's like now, like, let me just be honest, COVID has affected my body quite a bit, and I am probably the heaviest I have ever been. And I couldn't care less. Like, I know that I am beautiful, and like I'm just in this new place of like, I don't care. Like, yeah, it'll come off. When it comes off, it comes off. But I'm great right now. I'm fine. Like,
it's great. What's great is that you're healthy and you're not in a hospital.
Hey, amen.
And one of the things I'm grateful for today is it finally started raining here in Northern California, so I don't have to sit here and wonder if my house is going to burn down for another few months.
Oh,
I get to that part of my physiology gets to quiet down.
oh my gosh.
So there's lots of things to be grateful for. Can we go back to? I just want to get some idea. When does your drinking lessen? When do you start drinking less? And can you draw a connection to what you did and like, oh well, when I did this, I'm just wondering. Maybe you don't think linear like I do, and you weren't looking for, well, when I did this, then that's what happened. But those are the kind of questions I'm wondering.
No, that's good. And I don't know that I have this like line in the sand. I know that I did, some experiments that year as I was writing my journal. I know that I did do, some of those like, 30 days, like sober October, things like that.
Oh.
Just to kind of like just to make sure that I wasn't completely pouring poison into my body every night endlessly. But I don't know that there was a point at which,
Well, it sounds like as you started to become more grateful, then you were less despondent and depressed. And maybe even, what do you think? You were pretty resentful towards the publishers who dropped you. Do you think when you started getting an attitude of gratitude that you didn't have the time and energy to be resentful towards them?
I think that's a huge part of it. And also that they're not responsible for my destiny. Right. And I could release them from that. Is that
Not only are they not responsible, they don't control it either.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So where are you actually now? Now that you have authored your life, Laura.
Oh, Lord. Well, we're all still on a journey, right? I don't want to like make it seem like I'm this, perfect person or something. I still struggle with not struggle with my drinking, but I have to keep it in check, right? This is something that I think I have an addictive personality. So I have to be, really careful and set up very careful parameters. Because that is just something that's always going to be, I think, part of my story is just really thinking about, am I fueling myself with healthy things that add to my life and don't detract? Now, this is true of alcohol, and this is true of food. Like food is a big comfort for me. So I'm still on this path, right? Like I'm still growing and learning, but the thing that is like shifted for me, the big things that are shifted are like, they're locked in place of like self-worth, value, enoughness, loving myself, feeling like I know what my purpose is. I know what I'm here to do. I can be vulnerable. I can talk to people like you and like tell my story and not be afraid and not feel like a garbage person. And that's the stuff, man. That's the stuff.
And you really do exude a lot of self-confidence and self-acceptance and self-love. And you do talk freely about your foibles and your challenges, which is, I think, so important. We all need to be able to do that. That's really what the shame-free zone is about, is, creating a safe place for us to drop our facades and be real about what's going on in our lives.
Yeah.
And the current pandemic is a challenge that is being experienced around the planet. So everybody's had to find whatever ways they can to deal with it. I know I joined the masses. I didn't even know that this is what was happening. I just ended up watching the Tiger King obsessively when COVID first hit. And it wasn't until I was finished that I realized, the rest of the entire planet had been watching it with me.
Yes.
I'm like, how did we all get off on that?
I know, we're just like, any port in a storm, please.
Yeah. So it's been a challenging year. I was just listening to a Washington Post podcast this morning, and the journalist said this has been the most eventful and difficult year that any of us has ever lived through. And I think that that's true. There might be some people in their 90s who would disagree with that. And I would certainly accede to their wisdom on that. But as far as I think anybody from 70 and younger, this would have been one of the most challenging years. And we're still here. And a lot of us just found ways to pivot. And, I've taken all my clients online. My world actually got bigger. I'm interviewing and working with people from around the globe. It's so fun. Yesterday I was talking to Berlin. I mean, it's just, I'm actually having a fabulous time.
Well, that kind of makes me ask, like, you were sort of thinking about authoring your life now for 2021. And I kind of wanted to ask you, like, what do you think Veronica's story is in this new year? What do you think is going to happen to her?
Well, Veronica just wrote an article on Medium. I've got a blog on Medium that has absolutely nothing to do with sex. So I started off being a sex worker rights activist. That's how I got all the major media exposure. And then I transitioned to being a sexologist and then a relationship coach. But as a relationship coach, my draw has always been that I can improve people's sex lives. And I do it through anger management tools and communication tools and my exclusive partnership formula. But giving myself permission to write about something like, why do we believe what we believe? And participate in a online event with Marianne Williamson where I offered a prayer. I just really being able to speak more freely and courageous. This is the irony, Laura. I have no problem talking about sex, and I have no problem talking about my checkered past or mistakes that I've made. But where my shame resides, my spiritual life.
Oh,
so I'm coming out.
Laura, you know what I would have you put in your, oh my gosh, I would have you put in your story. I would have you write this beautiful story of like Veronica, like just feeling so worthy and full of grace and loved, and picture like angel wings coming out of you and picturing you filled with light, and like writing the story where you're just healing light is just coming out into the world. Like that is the story I want for you.
Oh, you have no idea how right on you are. Because I actually have a video on my YouTube channel, which is where this is going to be living. And at the very end, there's a woman that shows up with angel wings. And I also have one of my branding images is of a woman who's half bird.
All right, we're giving you wings.
You got me.
Love that. I love that. Well, I believe that story for you, my friend. That is powerful stuff.
Yeah. It's kind of ironic, isn't it, that I've been in the world of sex for so many years. And the thing that people don't talk about in the world of sex is spirituality. And I've been kind of, playing around the edges talking about sacred sexuality. But I'm excited. It was really fun writing that article, and I'm looking forward to doing more of it. Plus, I also got to nerd out, which I really like to do. So I brought in all kinds of scientific research.
Hey,
another thing I hid. I think one of the reasons that I hid the nerdy part of me was because I was a straight A student, and I graduated with honors from Oregon State University, but I hung out with the stoners. So I didn't want them to find out.
Oh my gosh. Let's put that in your story. Veronica lets her nerd flag fly. Like just
nerd flag fly.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Laura. This is awesome. I want to ask you something. How are you authoring your life for 2021?
Ooh, that's a good one. I am trying to get my message out there for 2021. It's a new world, as you said. We're all pivoting. We're all kind of trying to navigate this whole new world. Yeah. And so I'm just trying to think really strategically about, who needs this message? Who do I really help? Who needs this message? How do I get it out into the world in a way that is really effective and really transforms lives? Because I love doing this. And it helps people and it helps me. And I love it. And I just want to do more of it. So that more. And thank you, universe, that it is coming.
Oh, so be it. And are you going to write more books?
I think I need to revise the current book. So the current book was written without enough of the understanding of the emotional engine of Author Your Life. It still works. Like I said, it still works. Buy the book. It still works. But like, boy, oh boy, does it need a redo with all of the stuff that I've learned about the power of emotions. So I think I'm going to do that in 2021. I'm going to try to revise it.
That just sounds like a really wonderful thing, actually. This year we've had a lot of emotions up and down and all around, lots of fear, confusion, and then back to fear. Okay, maybe a little anger thrown in there. I know my year was basically, shelter in place and wear masks, and then all of a sudden get evacuated from my house because of wildfires, and then it's just, and a family member's dying. So very tumultuous, and I realized it's affecting a lot of people. A lot of people have been affected by weather and the pandemic, and obviously lost people that they love. So I think dealing with emotions, really being able to show up for those emotions, is going to be key. My assumption is that a lot of people suffered a lot of trauma this year. And if they aren't able to get in touch with their feelings, then they're going to just have a reactive brain. And I think it's really important that we get in touch with that. I'm wondering, do you help clients who have trauma? Do they come to you sometimes to try to write a different story when they've suffered some big setback?
Yes, I've had clients who have we've all experienced trauma, I think, in maybe not trauma with a capital T, but certainly trauma with a lowercase t. If I feel like someone's trauma with a capital T is pretty far out of my comfort zone or level of experience, I mean, I'm not, as everyone has heard, I'm not trained in this, like I'm figuring this out. So I definitely encourage people to seek professional therapy, for sure, for big stuff that is maybe out of my wheelhouse. And I'm fine saying that. Like I can feel it. Like when I have someone in front of me and I can feel that it's too, I just intuit it. Like this is not right. It's too much for Author Your Life. Right. But I would tell people, I think the thing about the trick about trauma that is so tough is that when trauma creates what I call an old story. Like trauma creates the story where you have to act in a certain way to keep yourself safe. It's not safe to feel your
creates rigidity. Right?
Yes. And then you're trying to write this new story and you're like, okay, but Lara has, happiness and peace and whatever. You got to resolve that tension. You have to resolve that tension. And the only way to resolve that tension is through stillness and feeling your feelings. You gotta let that old story come up. You gotta figure out a way to feel it. And that's the most terrifying thing I think of all. The hero's journey, because we're writing fiction and, I have been writing fiction for so many years. The hero's journey is this like circle of all these stages that the hero goes through in really any story. It's kind of this template that you can put on. It was popularized by a guy named Joseph Campbell in the 1970s.
Right.
And you can see the hero's journey in anything. You can see it in Harry Potter, and you can see it in Star Wars, and you can see it in Pitch Perfect. I mean, you can see it in every single movie, whatever. And people think that the hero's journey starts with, the hero, like sort of, Frodo leaves the Shire and goes on the quest for the ring. But it doesn't start there. The hero's journey starts with something called answering the call. And the way that you answer a call in life is the same way you answer a call on your phone, which is that somebody calls you and you have to stop and you have to listen. And the only way to listen is to be quiet and still. So the hero's journey starts with stillness. Always, the hero's journey starts with stillness. So if you're not still and quiet and letting your old story speak to you so you can heal it, that's the key. That's the key to it.
I love that. And I think winter is a great time to be still. This is when every Some animals are hibernating. The leaves have fallen off the trees and the plants because they're becoming hibernated. And we're going to spend more time indoors. And it's a great time to curl up in front of a fireplace if you have one and read a book or author your own life.
For example.
Yeah. Laura, I when I was, I have a lot of trauma in my childhood. And in my first 4 years of sobriety, I suddenly had to write a book. I'd never written one before at that point. I was probably 29. And the book birthed itself. I would try to go to sleep at night. I couldn't sleep. I would get this horrible, horrible gut ache, feel like I was going to throw up. And I knew I had to write out a story. And I'd write these little vignettes about things that happened to me as a child. And then, and only then, would I be allowed to go to sleep. And I did write it longhand in a journal with a pencil. So I did that for a year. I did that for a year. That book's never seen the light of day. I still have the journal. I had at one point thought I would adapt it and actually try to publish it, but I think I would write a better story in a different way now. Yeah. And so one of the things that I wanted to make sure the viewers know is that writing out your pain, writing out your trauma is a great way to also clear the decks so that something else can be born. And as it turns out, a few years later, I was a published author and I wrote a sex manual.
Yes.
But
that's true though. Yeah. I mean, there's, I try not to rag on traditional journaling because there's so much value in thinking about, author your life is very sort of future focused, but there is value in really reflecting deeply on the past. And you've got, like I said, you've just got to resolve that. You've got to resolve that tension. And sometimes when this was happening to me, back in the early days of author your life, I would literally just write, Lara feels her feelings, because I didn't know how to feel my feelings. I knew they were in there. I knew I was shoving them down. I knew that my body had things to tell me, and I had no idea how to access any of it. And it terrified me. So all I could write was Lara feels her feelings. And just writing that cracked the door to possibility.
And look at you now.
Look at me now. I love to feel my feelings now.
So full of feelings, so full of life, so full of hope and inspiration. Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that you came into the shame-free zone to share shamelessly. You really got vulnerable with us, and I'm really grateful for that.
Oh, Veronica, what a pleasure. You're so lovely, and I just like to spend time with you. And we both got the purple memo. So
what is that about, huh? We got the purple memo. Yes, we did.
Memo.
So how can I'm going to put your link at the bottom of this video, but you can also say it if you want, just to let people know how they can find you if you want your help in authoring their life.
Yeah, I would say the best thing to do is just go to authoryourlifenow.com, and there's going to be a little, pop-up that comes up that's get my free video series that explains author your life, and just grab it. They're short. They're 4-minute videos or something. And there's 3 of them. It's a tiny little mini course, and it's going to be a deep dive on the 5 principles of author your life and the 3 most important things I learned to write, and a little bit more about the science. So that'll be helpful if people want to deeper.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And by the way, I can hear your fur baby in the back.
She's here. She has things to say, folks.
She has things to say. We should have brought her on.
Oh, she's a firecracker.
Well, thank you again, Lara. And I'm sure I will see you in another one of our mastermind groups. But
I hope so, my friend. See you. Thank you again.
Okay, bye.